Oh, I don't think my video's worked. Never mind. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're back at Gooner Gathering, and we're here for another Desert Island Kickabout, and I am joined today by the legendary Jez Collins. How are you, mate? It's good to have you here.
Yeah, pleasure, mate. It's a pleasure. Yeah, it's always nice talking about this sort of stuff. So thanks for adding me on your show.
No, mate. Last time we had you on, Jez, we had such a surge in our subscriptions. We owe you an awful lot for what you and your channel and your guys did for us. So I will always plan to have you back on. So what have you been up to today, mate? You've been doing any streams today?
No. The trouble is at the moment, Lee, is I think you'd agree, it's finding decent stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Because everybody's talking about the same stuff. Yeah. I think I did a show Friday night about the incomings of Arsenal with Kenny Ken and a couple of other people, and what we should be looking to achieve for the upcoming season. And yeah, I mean, I hate the closed season because there's nothing to talk about. You know what I mean? I like doing match previews, match reviews, general. I mean, I have to be honest, I haven't done any history stuff for months. I really haven't, and I need to get back into that. They don't get great views. I'll be honest with you, they don't. But there is a core of people out there that do enjoy them. So I might start doing that back. I'm going to be starting to do individual interviews with YouTubers. You're welcome if you wish to come on and talk about your experience of how you became an Arsenal fan, how you've grown up with the club, your life with Arsenal, all that sort of stuff, you know. So excuse me, I'm going to be setting that up probably next week. Anthony Herbert, who's in the chat right now, he's one of the first coming on.
Nice.
It was his idea. So I've got to bring him on. He's a great guy, Anthony. Lovely fella.
Yeah. And you know, you mentioned about, so we're all trying to get through the closed season and everything and finding new content. That's one of the reasons I love doing this show, mate, is we're just sort of talking about a little bit different. What's happened here is we've ended up on a fictitious Gooner Gathering Island, if you like, ladies and gentlemen, where Jez will talk about 3 matches that he'd like to rewatch on our desert island. Magically a television and a DVD player have appeared. As Posh Bertie appears in the chat. There he is. Hello, my friend. It's like I haven't spoken to you in about 5 minutes. So, and we'll talk a few other things along the way. So, and again, it's a little bit of a chance for me to get to know you a little bit better as well. So, let's get into it, shall we? Would you like to tell me what your first match is? What would you like to kick us off with on our desert island?
Well, when we set this up, when you sent me the Instagram, I had a long hard to think about this, and I've actually got I've got 7 games, but I don't think we'll talk about all of them. But I might mix it up a little bit, you know, just
absolutely.
I might throw a few different ones in there, but anyway, my first one is this one. It was my first ever game at Highbury. Just to background, my granddad lived in Gillespie Road, right opposite the North Bank, where I was born in my grandparents' house. My parents then had a house in Avenel Road, which was right opposite the East Stand. And I could walk out of my front door and there was the entrance to the East Stand. So that's obviously, I grew up with my granddad, who was a lifelong Arsenal fan. He first saw Arsenal in 1924. Went to their first ever FA Cup final in 1927. So, you know, there's a massive history here. But to get back to the point, my first ever live game at Highbury was on the 13th of August 1968. Arsenal were home to Leicester City. First game of the season, Arsenal had played away at Liverpool. Obviously, I wasn't old enough to go to that sort of thing. I wasn't allowed. Basically, my mum would never allowed it. And the game, I can still remember the team pretty much to this day. It was Bob Wilson, who had joined the previous year. Peter Storey, Bob McNabb, legends of the club, and Frank McClintock, who, if I think I'm correct in saying, was captain. I might be wrong. But also Terry Neal, who obviously later became the
manager,
Arsenal manager. Peter Simpson, and God, I think that's the bloke's name now. Might have to miss one here because John Radford.
Yeah,
great player. Samuels, I can never remember his first name.
Was it John Samuels?
It might be. I can't ever remember, man. To be honest.
Yeah, that's all right. I think it's a J.
You could be right. You're probably right. And then, of course, we had the iconic George Graham, who came on to be. So we had two future Arsenal managers in that team, which is quite ironic, I think. We had a guy called Court, not a big part of the Arsenal setup, but decent player. And of course, we had the other guy. No, I can't think of his name. Began with a J, surname began with a J. I can't think of it. Anyway, the game was 1-0 first half. And this is back in the day when you could only have one substitution, quite ironically. And Bertie Mead, the manager at the time, made a change and brought on Bobby Gould, who went on a legendary player. And I think he changed him. I think it was for Court. No, it wasn't. It was. It was George Graham. Changed him for George Graham. And Arsenal went. Bobby Gould then went on to score 2 goals, and we won the game 3-0. Now, there's something special about this game. I want to try and express how I felt. I'm a little kid. I'm 7, right? My first time of going into Highbury, and my granddad, in his then, used to go in the North Bank, but he said, "I'm not taking you in the North Bank because you're too small. It's going to be too much of a crush." So I'll always remember we walked round from Avenel Road up to Gillespie Road, down Highbury Hill, into the West Stand, and I remember going up all the steps.
Yeah.
We were up in the upper west, and I to try and explain to you, Lee, it was like entering an amphitheatre, because you go up these steps and you look down, and there's the pitch.
Yeah.
You know, there is Arsenal pitch.
Yeah.
And where we were sat was sort of not on the halfway, but slightly towards the North Bank. So we're looking diagonally towards the dugouts and the tunnel. And it was like something I've never, ever experienced ever again. Well, maybe that's not quite true. Similar, but it was something, I mean, how can I put it? Like butterflies in your tummy, you know. It was like, wow, you know, I'm at the ground, and I'm you know, and here we are, and we sat there in the seats, and then out came the manager, out came the teams, and on the pitch, and it was just like the noise. It was a cacophony. I mean, it was like, I used to be at home on match day as a little kiddie, and you'd hear the noise, but being in the ground, it was like, you're like that, because I'd never experienced it before in my life. And I always remember it was a really, really hot August day. And we were at 3 o'clock, the sun was sort of just over the old clock end. So luckily we were going into the shade. And at that time, I didn't actually have an Arsenal shirt as a little kid. Arsenal merchandise back then was nothing like it is today. You know, if it wasn't like 2 or 3 new shirts a season, it's basically one shirt every 2 years.
Yeah.
And anyway, we were there. Game kicks off. You know, I'm like all excited and everything. And I remember when Court scored the goal, and it was just like unreal, unbelievable. And the noise, then after that, there's a bit of singing and all this and all that. And then it was then petered down to a bit of a dull first half, you know, and half time came, teams came out. Arsenal were then defending the clock end. And it was dull. Leicester City were coming on Arsenal a little bit. There was a couple of yellow cards, and it was then I think that Bertie Mee hoiked off George Graham and brought on Bobby Gould, who was actually went on to become a top class player. And he banged in 2 goals, and Arsenal won the game 3-0. So that is an absolute iconic game for me. Nice. It wasn't the greatest of games. You know, it wasn't great. It's a pretty non-memorable game because it was the second game of the season, but it was my first game, Highbury, and it's something I'll never ever forget. And I think when you've probably like yourself, Lee, you've probably experienced that at some point in your first game at Arsenal, whatever game you went to.
Yeah.
It was just magical. And I remember going, when the game finished, we actually sat there for about 20, 25 minutes to let the crowd go, you know, to get out.
What the crush is like, yeah.
Yeah. And then we went out. I remember going back to my nan and granddad's house in Gillespie Road. And there was still a lot of people around, obviously. And the queues getting into the Arsenal tube were immense. And you didn't have the amount of police around then that you did today at a football match. Because back then, football trouble was only in its infancy. You used to have a bit, but nothing like when it came later, the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really a problem. So I remember going home, and I remember boring my grandma to death because she hated football. She hated it because my granddad never stopped talking about it. And of course, I'm sitting there talking the hind legs of a donkey to her about the game. And of course, being her grandson, she sat there patiently listening. And I remember my granddad sat in his chair with his pipe. It was a smirky smile, like, and he knew she was suffering, but she weren't going to say nothing because I'm her grandson. Yeah. And then I think it was about 7 o'clock that night. I think my granddad walked me back down Avenel Road to my mum and dad's house. And I remember talking my mum and dad's hind legs off about the game. And they weren't football fans. My dad was a rugby man. He was not a footballer at all. And so that's my first occasion, man.
Brilliant. No, I enjoyed that. Well, it sounds like you very much went through the same sort of thing. As you were talking, I was kind of picturing myself, my dad and my brother going through the North Bank. That was our first game. I passed the live band, go up the stairs, down looking at pitch level, much like yourself. and it absolutely took my breath away. So I totally get, and I can picture the roads even you're talking about. So yeah, that's a great story. And so, like Bobby Gould coming off the substitute, of course, became a manager at Wales as well, didn't he?
Yeah,
that's right, isn't it? So wow, okay. So, and I've got to say, I knew it would be interesting having you on as well, because you're bringing up a totally different generation, obviously, but 1968. So that's what's fun about this. It's a very much a learning process for myself and some of the younger people watching as well, learning about different generations of the club, which I think is quite important. It's what your channel's all about as well, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Learning all about the history of the club, and that's very important. So we'll move on from the matches just for a minute. Normally we'll sort of talk about 3 other things as well. Sometimes I'd like to talk about a piece of music that's quite influential, a song that sort of sticks out in your head, maybe a film, and maybe a luxury item as well. So up to you, Jez. Where would you like to go? What would you like to talk about?
When you talk about music, are we talking about football related or any music?
Anything you like, my friend. This is your interview.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty much a rock blues sort of, if you call it, heavy metal fan. And one of the most influential times for me was probably when I was about 13, and a friend of mine who's actually a year older than me, and I went round his house one day, and he said, "Oh, you got to listen to this." And I said, "All right, yeah. Well, what is it?" And he said, "It's Status Quo." And I said, "Who?"
Yes.
What? Who? No, I just got this album. And it was the Status Quo Hello album. And I said, "All right." And he said, "Listen to this." And I was listening away. I'm like, didn't know anything about that music. I didn't have a bleeding clue.
Yeah.
But I remember the song on there, Caroline.
Yeah.
And I just loved the rhythm of it, the old.
Yeah.
I didn't know at the time 12-bar blues and all that. And I thought, yeah, I like this. I really like this. And about every 3 days, he only had one album. We'd go round and we'd go and sit in his bedroom and we'd play the album. And it drove his mum nuts. Anyway, I remember saying to my mum and dad for my birthday in May, "Can I have a record player?" And my dad had a record player, but I was not allowed to touch it. And so they bought me one, cheap one,
Yeah.
And speakers, it was one with the speakers built in, and it was bloody shit sound, to be honest. And it was when Status Quo brought out the On the Level album with all the classics tunes that are on that.
Yeah.
And then I sort of started pushing more and more, and I was then doing little jobs for my nan and granddad and cutting the grass in the back garden and stuff. And so I was earning a little few pounds, and I used to like go and buy an album or a single or whatever. So I started to build up a bit of a collection of Status Quo. I remember buying the Pile Driver album, Status Quo, and then I started to digress. I started getting into listening to other things on the radio, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath.
Nice.
On you remember the channel? Oh Christ! There's a film about it. They had a boat ship out in the North Sea.
Oh Christ! Yeah, I know what you're talking about. No.
And you could tune into it. Radio Valentine.
Yeah.
And you could listen into there, and you'd hear things like Zeppelin, Deep Purple, all those bands, And I started really getting into all of this now. So literally every small money I had, I was buying albums or whatever. And it went on, it rolled on, it rolled on. And when I got older, and I was about 17, 18, when we just go to pubs and have a drink, a band came about called Iron Maiden, who were playing in a pub in the Rumsey Arms out in Essex. And we used to get out on there. Mates of mine had motorbikes. I didn't have one. And we'd get on their motorbikes. We'd go out and watch them and everything. And then started to go to concerts and things. And I remember going to my first gig was at the Hammersmith Odeon, saw Status Quo, ironically. It was the Rockin' All Over the World tour album.
Fantastic album as well. I know this. Yeah. I know this well.
Yeah. We went. That was my first ever live concert in a big venue.
Yeah.
Anyway, times moved on, and Iron Maiden was starting to get known, and they brought out their first single called "Running Free," and they were playing. They were actually doing. It was actually a film for London Weekend Television, Thames Television, and they were playing at the Marquee in Wardour Street. So we got down there, and it was only a small venue, and we got in there, and they were playing their set, and the singer was a guy called somebody Dianio. It wasn't the current guy. Anyway, we were in there, and it was like weird because their single "Running Free," London Weekend Television made them play it 7 times to get the right sound and screenshots.
Right, got you.
So, you remember back in them days when you had, I had long hair down to here then in them days. I had the biker jacket, the denim cut off, all that crap. When you hear the song once, that's fine. The people headbanging and all that, like they did in the 80s, early 80s. When it gets to playing it the 7th time, I remember watching that when the program was released, and everybody just stood there. Because by now you're fed up with bloody hearing it. And it sort of killed it a bit. And then obviously they moved on. They brought their first album out, and they went obviously become a huge, massive group. But music in my youth was massive. It was huge to me. After listening to Status Quo, my mate had it for his first album, Hello. I got a guitar. It's a bloody awful Spanish guitar, but I wanted to learn to play the guitar. And years went on. I actually played in a few bands. I don't play much now, but I used to, and I've got some beautiful guitars. But
we've got an awful lot in common, my friend, because you don't know this. I play guitar as well.
Good man.
My dad was a musician as well.
Over there, I've got a Fender Strat, Telecaster. I've got downstairs my Les Paul, my SG. I can't say I was only brilliant. I could knock some sounds out. I was a shit lead guitarist. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But I did play in a band where we had an absolutely awesome lead guitar player, so I didn't have to worry about that. I could do the chords and all that, but so it's all.
If you're a Quo fan, you only need 3 chords, you'd be fine.
Well, that was the fact. Most blues songs have only got 3 chords, haven't they?
Exactly.
Maximum of 5. So if you're lucky.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of my history, mate. Bit of my history gone back in time.
Oh, it's fantastic. So the Quo era as well. It's one of my dad's favourites as well. Would be Rocking All Over the World and Wanderer and all that. Yeah, fantastic stuff. I love all that. I've got a question for you from the chat from Anthony Herbert. And he says, what was your last game you watched at Highbury? Can you share any memories of that?
The last game I actually watched at Highbury was the game when we went invincible. Because I'd moved away and to get in there was difficult. It was I had a family and kids then, so I couldn't justify spending the money, to get there. It was the following season I gave up my season ticket because it was just, I just couldn't afford to do it.
Yeah.
And it was, it was an iconic game. We beat Leicester to win, become invincibles. Vieira and then Henry scoring the penalty. So that was an incredible game. It was an incredible day.
Arsenal went behind as well, didn't they? And wasn't it
1-0 down? Yeah.
Wasn't it Dickoff who scored for Leicester?
Yeah.
Wow, yeah. I'm surprised myself. I remembered that.
Thought,
oh no, it couldn't happen. It couldn't happen. But of course,
season, I went to probably 90% of the home and away games.
Yeah.
And there was many games actually where Arsenal were in deep crap,
and
pulled it out the bag. A draw, fluky win. Portsmouth away, got away with that one.
Yeah.
It was. I think a lot of it sometimes, Lee, is when your luck's with you, your luck's with you.
And the game's all about, isn't it?
I'm not detracting from the amazing team they were.
Yeah.
But I have to say this. George Graham's team that nearly went invincible, if people were to ask me, I'd say they were better.
Yeah, I understand that. I know where you're coming from on that.
I know that people are going to say, "Oh, that's a stupid comment." That's stupid because you had Bergkamp, you had Henry, Vieira, all that lot. Yeah, they were great players. They were fabulous players.
Yeah,
some of the best players I've ever seen ever play at Arsenal. But the fact of what George Graham nearly did with that team was immense. But people, I've had this argument. Oh yeah, but it was boring Arsenal, 1-0 to the Arsenal. Well, no,
we loved it.
Yeah, but it wasn't always. There were some magic moments, and we'll get into something as we progress in this discussion. But so that's pretty much my journey with music.
Nice.
It's never changed, to be honest.
It's a great era of music as well. There's so much great stuff going on there. That rock and roll style, it's my favourite style as well.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely. I mean, you can tell I had all the long hair and the headbanging stuff as well. That's definitely my character, or perhaps not. Yeah, man. You're my style icon, mate. That's what it is. But, hello to Luca, who's joined us in the chat, by the way.
Down to there.
We've got to see their pictures at some stage, mate.
Because I when I was working in the job I had at the time, when I was an apprentice, every 3 months we had to have a sort of not an interview, but an assessment with the local district service officer, and every time I'd get a letter advising me about the length of my hair because I was working in the gas industry.
Oh, okay.
They would say, "Oh, you could set your hair alight," and I did many times. I won't lie. When you had the old cookers, remember the old cookers with the eye level grill?
Yeah.
And you'd be sticking your head in like that to look at something that's going wrong, and
oh dear.
The amount of times I'd
it's not a great smell, is it? That burning hair. It's not good.
When you're young, you don't care, do you?
No, quite. I'll give Luca a big shout out, by the way, who's in the chat. It's nice to have him back on YouTube as well after a little bit of a break. He's a really good guy, and everyone who's watching, please make sure you go and subscribe to Luca after we've done, because he's a good guy and he deserves all the support he gets. So thank you for being there, mate. So let's go on this.
Sorry, Luca was on with me on Friday night, and it's good to have him on there.
I saw it. So it's good to have him there. Let's go for our official second match on the desert island, shall we? What we're burning onto the second match on the DVD?
Oh, now this is a real tough one for me. this is a real tough one, because I've got a few I could mention. We can negate the Invincibles. We just talked about that, so that's out the window. It's going to have to be. I hope you're going to ask me about cup finals. I hope that.
Yeah, absolutely. We could go cup finals. Absolutely.
One of the most iconic games I was ever privileged to go to was got the 88-89 Anfield, when we went and won 2-0. I was privileged to be there.
You were there. Wow.
I've got my program here somewhere. I can't remember where it is now. It's under there. And that was something unreal. No, I can tell you now, Lee. I can tell you now. Going up there after what had happened to Liverpool, that horrible tragedy at Hillsborough.
Yeah.
We were running away, then they caught us up. None of us expected to win. I can tell you that. There's not many Arsenal fans that went there were expecting that win. We hadn't won at Anfield since 1974.
Goodness me.
So that says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so we're going up there, and we get there. It's a delayed kickoff because there's a lot of fans, Arsenal travelling, that there's delays on the motorways and all that sort of crap. And basically in the grounds, the atmosphere for the Liverpool fans was immense.
Yeah. Now,
one thing I will say, it is a bit of a fallacy. Everybody says that Anfield is always lit. It's not. I can tell you, if a team goes up front against them, they go quiet. Proven this season when we went 2-0 up.
Yeah.
Until Granit Xhaka did Xhaka stuff.
Yeah.
And then the crowd got up, and we know what happened. 2-2. There you go. Could have lost 3-2. But that's another story.
Yeah.
That night was something special because the team came on that pitch with bouquets of flowers, and they were going around and giving it to the crowd and all that. And the cop was absolutely buzzing.
Yeah.
Where we were in the Anfield Road end of the ground, there was probably, 3,500-4,000 in the ground. But back then it was a bit of a sort of like half and a corner, if you get my meaning of the ground.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So outside was probably 1,500, maximum 2,000 that couldn't get in because they didn't have a ticket.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about this, Lee, is I see so many YouTubers, right? I'm not going to name names, that profess they were there. Now, back in them days, you could only get an away ticket, right, if you were a season ticket holder and you had the tokens to get an away ticket, right?
Yeah.
Certain YouTubers professed they were there and they never had a season ticket at that time. So there's no way they ever got to that game. They might have been stood outside, but I very much doubt it. Because I know friends of mine that went to that game who had been season ticket holders, couldn't get a ticket because they didn't have the tokens, but they still went. Yeah. That's how devout they were to the club. That's how much they wanted just to be there. So, we know the game. It was pretty much controversial goal from Alan Smith. They were at Liverpool were claiming it was offside.
Furious, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched that. I've got it on I've got it on DVD. I used to have it on video, but I've got it on DVD. I couldn't see whether it was or it wasn't at the time. Goals given. So obviously we went mental.
Yeah.
Then the second half, they were on us, John Barnes, and it was just on us all the time. And I always remember the moment when Kevin Richardson takes the ball, makes that pass, flicks it on. Somehow, I can't remember the name of the Liverpool player. It came off him. Michael Thomas got it, jinked, slotted.
Yeah.
And the place, the Arsenal end, absolutely erupted. It was, I went down. You know, it's all terraced, yeah?
Yeah.
I went down, I don't know, eight steps, maybe, crashed into these two girls and never seen them. I've never seen them before. Didn't know they were. Obviously, you know, Arsenal fans. And everybody's hugging each other and jumping up and down. And it was just an unbelievable experience. Getting out, going home, going back, getting back to Highbury, it was just probably one of the maddest scenes I've ever seen in my life.
I can imagine.
Every single person that lived around the ground was out in the streets. It was carnage. It was just, I mean, people were out there, front doors left open, coming out with beer, everything. And then, of course, I remember, I think it was about 4 or 5 in the morning, maybe, yeah, I can't really remember. People were out with ladders, right, putting bunting up.
Oh, brilliant.
You know, ready for the old
trophy presentation, yeah.
Yeah, the open top parade and all that.
Nice.
So it was an unbelievable time. Something I'll never, ever forget. So that goes down probably as my second best experience.
Fantastic. Do you know what was great about this game as well? You mentioned George Graham on your first match, Seven. George Graham is the manager in this match, and the tactical masterclass that he played in this matchup, where Arsenal needing 2 goals, as we all know, and he goes and plays the extra centre half. He goes and plays Baldy in the back 3, and just to keep us solid. He was always one to believe that we'll get them. We'll just, as George would, you'll just get, invite a little bit of pressure, and eventually it would pay off.
Mm.
Especially sort of on the break, especially for the second goal.
He was a brilliant manager.
Was my first manager as an Arsenal fan. So
was he? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, he was an incredible icon of the fact. When we got him from Millwall, yeah, I won't lie. I thought, not sure. I'm not really sure about this, but he came in, and he was an absolute masterclass genius. I often wonder what if he'd stayed at Millwall, what would he achieved there?
Yeah.
I really wonder that, because I know he didn't have the quantity or quality of players at Millwall at that time, but if he'd moved them up, I often wonder what he would have achieved with them. And I was privileged to have met him as a young kid when he was a player. I met him as a manager. Absolute gentleman of a man. Yeah. And yeah, I think, and that's why I made the statement. I think his 91 team that nearly went invincible, was a better team, in my opinion, than the Invincibles.
No, I get that. I get that. The other thing I often wonder is, had all the business that went on behind the scenes, all the controversy which led to him leaving, I kind of wondered in what sort of direction Arsenal would have gone in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, he was naughty. He was naughty. But when you look at modern day football, really, what goes on now? It's nothing really, was it?
No, I suppose it was a wink and a nod, and here you go. Have John Jensen. I'm sure he'll pay it off in goal return.
But the thing is, the FA wanted to make an example, like they used to, a lot more with managers and players. I mean, dear God, back then, when Tony Adams got done for drink driving, he got banged up for 6 months.
Down the road from me, mate. I'm in Chelmsford. about a mile down the road.
I mean, Ivan Toney, good God, all his stuff, and all he's got is a 6-month ban. So and whatever the fine was he got, which means absolutely nothing to him.
No, of course not.
It's small change. He hasn't got any what do you call it, working in the community or anything like that type of setup. So I think it's a bit pathetic, really.
And Arsenal forever in the chat. So George Graham was ruthless at times. Yeah, I think he had to be. But one of the greatest minds in the business. And I remember, I'm sure you do too, on the very day that Arsenal let him go. Obviously, there was rumblings of what was going on and investigations and stuff. I remember listening to it was the Radio 5 I was listening to. It was actually a match day as well, wasn't it? It was against Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
And to hear Arsenal had got rid of him, and it was like it was very rare for Arsenal to dismiss a manager. It's still not happened that often, even in my lifetime, really.
No.
And it kind of felt like, oh my goodness, it's an end of an era kind of thing. And it led to a load of questions on the direction of a club, and it was in the middle of the season as well, where we were struggling, wasn't it? It was just after the European Cup Winners' Cup final side of the beat Parma, and then we were struggling in the league a little bit. This was 95. Still that side are still struggling. Managed to get to the final in that time. And but it was it was quite a journey, quite an experience. All of it eventually turned up all rosy when a certain Arsene Wenger showed up after, of course, the Bruce Rioch experiment. And
that's a non-starter, wasn't it? That was David Dean waiting for Arsene Wenger. I mean, Lee, I was just thinking now. In my lifetime, I can only think of 3 managers that have been sacked: Bertie Mee, Terry Newell, and George Graham.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
that's not something the Arsenal do, is it? Not really.
No, it's a long period of time, that.
Yeah.
Arsene Wenger was asked to leave.
Yeah.
He wasn't sacked.
No.
He said basically Arsenal just said, look, we don't want to disrespect you with what you've achieved, especially now he's going to have a statue outside the stadium.
Yeah.
I think it's time for a change. And of course, it's what's his name? Emery. Unai Emery, wasn't it?
So he is posh, but he says in the chat.
Okay, fair enough. Fair play. Which I think was a big mistake, personally. But that's a subject for another day.
Yeah.
I don't want to interfere with that on your show, but anyway, just to cap, that 89 game was an experience I'll never ever forget. Bit like my first ever game.
Yeah.
Certain games stick in your brain, and you can talk about them and talk about. I mean, I'm sure I've bored so many YouTubers to death talking about the 89 game.
I love it, mate.
Well, every time I've been on different channels, people say, tell me about the 89 game. And I'm like, really? Okay.
That's not freshening up content, is there, mate?
Yeah. It is.
Do you know what was fun for me is on our other channel, our sister channel, if you like, on Twitch. I had the opportunity to talk to Posh Bertie. We went through. We did almost like a retro match watch along with the pictures as well, and it was fun to talk about them sort of players from back in the day. Talking about the likes of Rocky Rocastle and talking about the tactical genius of George Graham and that time, and that was a lot of fun for me to do as well. So it's even now, sort of so many years down the line from that, I do go back and watch that every now and then, just to freshen it. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And Anthony Herbert, saying it was 10 at the time. There it is. There's the program.
Yeah.
And like I said, no one gave us a chance on that, even the broadcasters. So all they need to do, to avoid that, to just avoid the defeat, basically. And then all of us, no one gave us a chance. And to win it in the manner that they did was just absolutely wonderful. People cried. I remember Nigel Winterburn saying he couldn't see a thing because he was in tears on that left-hand side. But no, brilliant time, brilliant match. Always a fun one to look back on. Posh Bertie, bless your heart, mate. He's a right young and his Posh Bertie. Minus 12 back then.
Right. Yeah.
I know. What way to make us feel really, really good about ourselves, mate. Thank you. So,
I was 28.
What would I have been? So I would have been 10 as well. So yeah. And what wasn't really massive into my football, I was aware of it, but sort of a couple of years later, I got the bug of it, and then I got to learn my history. Spencer, watching us in the States, was 3 years old. Okay. Question from Anthony here. So, thoughts on Don Howe? No one ever talks about him. That's a good question.
Don Howe, yeah. He's great. He's a great coach with Arsenal for many, many, many years. He was a good custodian of the club. Played for Arsenal, bit before my time, to be fair, but he did a great service for the club. To be fair, I wouldn't say he lit any fireworks, but he certainly did a job with the managers, with Terry Neal, George Graham.
Yeah.
But then again, you have to also remember Pat Rice. He was
Declan's dad, of course.
Yes. He was a very, very good coach for Arsenal, with the club a long time.
Ages, wasn't he?
Sorry?
He was there for absolutely ages, wasn't he?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, another stalwart player. I was
great right back as well.
Yeah, I was lucky to watch him play for Arsenal. He played in a game, one of my most iconic cup finals. All these people to me are legends.
Well, you wanted to talk about cup finals. That's a decent segue enough. Would you like to talk about the cup final you want to talk about then?
Well, there's two.
I think I know what one of them might be.
I won't go in depth. I mean, my first ever cup final, 70-71, when we won the double.
Yeah.
That was my first time at an FA Cup final. It was an iconic day. 1-0 down to Liverpool.
Of course.
Steve Highway, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
And then Arsenal came back and I forget his fucking name now. Kelly.
Eddie Kelly, yeah.
Kelly. And then, of course, extra time, the iconic Charlie George goal.
George, yeah.
And that was the first time that I had the yellow and blue shirt. And that was an unbelievable occasion. Arsenal had won the league, then they go and win the FA Cup. and do the double. So it's an amazing occasion.
Mm.
And then next year we play Leeds United and we lose 1-0. But probably, so that's that FA Cup final. That's my first time. So it was an amazing occasion. But then, of course, for me was the 78, 79, 79. Man United, Arsenal, Man United, 2-0 up. Scored by the guy we bought from Ipswich the year before. What was his bleeding name? Come on.
Oh, crumbs.
What was his name? Can't think of his name.
I'll try and get it. I'll try and get it.
Then it was Stapleton, of course. Sunderland scored, 2-0 up, 2-2. Sunderland in the last minutes of the game scored the goal, and that was an iconic day.
Talbot,
Brian Talbot,
of course it is.
Ipswich.
Known as the 5-minute cup final, wasn't it?
Yeah. We bought
Arsenal 2-0 up and cruising.
Yes, well, we bought him from Ipswich because they'd beaten us 1-0 in the cup final the year before. And he scored Stapleton and then Sunderland. I mean, I always never forget that pass from Brady to Sunderland.
Oh, yeah.
Bow. And that, I mean, Liam Brady to me, wow. Why hasn't that man got a statue? Because he was immense for Arsenal. He's what? Minus what?
He would have been minus 22 in 79.
Mate, Posh Bertie, honestly, mate, you're making me look about 200 years old.
We'll have to watch that, Posh. We'll have to watch that on Twitch at some stage.
That was probably one of my being at that game. And let me tell you this: being at that game, we went 2-0 up, right?
Yeah.
Every rocking, every rolling, just basically game's done.
Yeah.
That's it. And Arsenal are going to push on now, and we're going to win 4-0. No worries, no problem. Man United came on us, and 2-1. Okay, we're still going to win this, and it's suddenly 2-2.
Yeah. And
you're like, we had Pat Jennings in goal.
Yeah, big Pat. Yeah.
And you're thinking, hello, what's going wrong here?
Odd one, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then
Arsenal on the ropes, and they managed to get back.
It was this now. It was seriously this. We do not want this we don't want this to go to extra time.
No, man. Absolutely not.
Back in them days, it was a bloody replay. You didn't have penalties.
Yeah. I've spoken about that before. We talked about the 92 Cup final against Sheffield Wednesday a couple of weeks ago. And, obviously that one went to a replay, and then it would have kept on going and going.
Well, do you remember the classic one? It was a semi-final. It went to five replays at the old Leicester ground.
Oh my goodness! Who was that against, Jess?
It was the FA Cup semi-final, and it went to 5 replays.
5 replays, yeah. Does ring a bell.
And we played them Sheffield Wednesday, wasn't it?
Was it Sheffield Wednesday that time? It might have been. And
we played them at Filbert Street, the old Leicester ground. And I went to 3 of the replays. I didn't go to all of them. And and it was the FA Cup feed. Anyway, I forgot what I was saying now. Oh yeah, the Man United game 3-2, and all of a sudden, great pass from Brady. Sunderland snaps in at the back post, and Brian Talbot thought he'd scored it, but he hadn't. And the place erupted.
Yeah,
and you could see the Man United team was like,
heads down. And
we've done it, and it was that is probably one of the most. It is probably one of the most intense cup finals I've ever been to in my life. It was incredible experience.
Just see what. So 6 weeks. Anthony Herbert 6 weeks old on that final. Wow. And Spencer, I think it's about.
You guys, you're all too bloody young.
Don't worry, Jez. We're near enough. Near enough the same sort of period. It's okay, mate. Do you know what? Funny story. I literally met the cup final goal scorer for West Ham literally about a month ago. I met Trevor Brooking in person down in my day job. Just randomly in my place of work in my supermarket, and I had the pleasure of talking to him for a couple of minutes. It was an absolute pleasure. So that was nice. And of course, Trevor Brooking was working with great John Motson as well back in the day for BBC when he did a load of commentary. And of course, Motson did the commentary for the '79 Cup final, and it was quite iconic on his commentary, I think. Is he one of your favourite commentators you've ever seen?
Motson?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Brian Moore on the big match on a Sunday.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, they were proper. I mean, I'm sorry, nowadays, there's a lot of arseholes out there commentating on football. They haven't got a clue what they're bleeding talking about. They're in it for the money. And football commentary nowadays, to me, is not what it was. Those guys had proper knowledge of the game. And there's a lot of people that get on Sky and certain other channels that absolutely talk bullshit. And that's why I don't watch it.
Well, that's fair enough. I mean, of course, if you don't like what Sky are providing, you can always tune into our YouTube channel where myself and Posh Bertie and who else might be on gives you another side of commentary. I think that's the way to go, people.
I've watched a couple of yours.
Thank you, mate.
Normally, what I do, I won't lie, what I normally do, I'll have the game on up there.
Yeah.
And I'll either have, I mean, most of the time, Lee, I won't lie, I watch Lee Gunner's watch along because
of course
I do player ratings and all that crap after the game with him. So, I have to sort of like be in sync, if you like.
Yeah.
I've watched you guys. I may not have been in your chat, but I have watched you. But if the game's not on Sky or on BT, I watch it on Bing Sport on this on my iMac.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's normally what I tend to do. But there you go. Anyway, that's my view on the 78-79 Cup final.
Fantastic. Well, let's break it up away from the football for a minute. I think we've got a movie you might want to talk about, if you like. Is there an iconic movie that you might go to watch over and over?
Crikey, there's loads.
As long as you want, mate.
I've only got about another 15 minutes, mate. So
that's all right. No problems. We can wrap that. No problem.
I'll tell you one that I absolutely love is Zulu.
Oh, yeah, okay. It's Michael Caine, isn't it?
Michael Caine.
Yeah.
There's some other great actors in that. I don't know. That's one film I love. I love that. I like the Battle of Britain. I tell you what, I can tell you the commentary. I've watched that so many times. I can tell you exactly what they're going to say before they say it.
Yeah.
One of my things is war history.
Nice.
Another film I love is the Battle of Waterloo. And I won't go more than that because I'll be boring you all night. But yeah, Zulu, Battle of Britain, and the Battle of Waterloo, mate, for me. Love.
Fair enough.
Sci-fi. I'm not into sci-fi at all.
Not my thing either.
It's just not me. I think it's all a load of crap. I've never watched E.T. Yes. I've never
Impressions as well.
I've never watched Back to the Future. I think that's a load of crap. And no, I like realism stuff.
Yeah.
You know, something that's factual but with a poetic license, you could say.
Yeah.
So that's my take on. That is my take on.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. There's something a little bit different there as well, which is fun. Would you like to briefly describe Zulu for people, especially the younger audience who might not know it?
Right. It was during the Zulu Wars. Isla was a battle before where the British infantry got absolutely destroyed. The first Welsh South Wales borderers were defending Rorke's Drift, which was a missionary post. And one of the reasons I actually am fascinated with it, one of my relatives was actually there. I have his cap badge. And he would have been something like my great uncle. He survived, and he didn't get a VC, but he got a medal, which unfortunately through the test of time has gone somewhere to, I don't know, another member of the family. I do have his cap badge, and so it's something interesting. It's something that means something to me.
Yeah.
It's historical. His son then went on to become a member of the Royal Artillery in World War I, and sadly died at the Battle of Passchendaele and has no known grave. His name is on the Menin Gate. If you don't know about the Menin Gate, it's where there's 75,000 names of Allied troops that have no name or have no known grave.
Yeah.
And he's on there. I actually have his cap badge. Right. Sorry. I do have one of his. If I can, no, can I get it off? Can I get it off?
It's a signed out for later on.
There you go. That was one of them. That's his Royal Artillery badge.
Wow.
It was it. He obviously didn't. That was not found.
Yeah.
That was his mum had that. But
yeah.
Anyway, I'll do that. I'll put that back together in a minute. Yes. So that it's all those sort of things that I find very important to me. It's history, family history, and that makes my fascination with that sort of thing, basically.
Fantastic, Jess. Thank you for sharing that. So, last item of business, our last match to put on our DVD to wrap us up, mate. Well, where would you like to go for our third and final match for the DVD?
Right, without a doubt, 69-70 Fairs Cup, second leg at Highbury. I was privileged to be there with that. Biggest crowd at that point I'd ever been at Highbury. It was just under 53,000. We were up again in the Upper West. Arsenal had come out of the Anderlecht game away 3-1 down. I went on to win that 3-0 to win the game 4-3, to win our first ever European trophy. Not that we've won many, to be honest. But we won that. Kelly, Samuels, and John Radford scored the goals. And Arsenal won the game 3-0. Got presented with the trophy. I can tell you this now. It was a horrible, foggy, cold, shit night. And at some parts of the game, you could hardly really see the other end of the pitch. I've seen that, Hendon Gooner. I've actually got it on DVD, man. Yes, so that was probably one of my most iconic games to witness that, because we came from a 3-1 deficit away and come back to Highbury and win 3-0. And I think this is where, Lee, that people don't give enough respect to the manager at the time, Bertie Mee, what he achieved at Arsenal. You know, he got us to 2 consecutive League Cup finals, which we lost both of them.
Right.
Double winners, first European trophy winners. So I wouldn't compare him to Herbert Chapman, but I think you have to remember Herbert Chapman, when he came to Arsenal in the 30s, right?
Yeah.
He set a legacy. He wasn't there all the way through when Arsenal won all of their 3 consecutive league championships. He died the year after first. It was George Allison that continued on. So, but he set up a legacy as he had done at Huddersfield Town. So, but Bertie Mee, I think, don't get enough recognition, really.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. It's certainly not a name that gets talked about very often these days, isn't it? But
I'll tell you what, if you were to ask a majority of modern day Arsenal fans who Bertie Mee was, we wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to pull this curtain, mate. It's right on my face.
No worries, my friend. It's okay.
It's not, sorry, a bit unprofessional, but there you go.
Mate, it's fine. It's YouTube. It's all right. You've seen my channel before, mate. You know, I'm an ultimate professional, as you know. That's why my intro didn't work earlier on, eh?
I've been doing it lately. I've been doing it. I've done 2 streams recently where I've copied the intro out. I don't know what's going on, but
never mind.
I'll say this to you: you'd think, wouldn't you, that StreamYard would have an easier way of just automating your intro to start?
It'd be handy
because I set up hotkeys. If I go live, right, I have the brand thing up with the intro, yeah. And I go option 1, hit that, and then option 1, right? So it doesn't work sometimes. And I'm thinking, why can't they just have a key where you go live video?
Exactly. It'd be so much easier for us all, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But not just you and me. Loads of other people cock it up.
Oh yeah. Space. the joy of YouTube broadcasting, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
But we do it, Jez, because we love talking Arsenal. We love talking about the club, and we just enjoy having a bit of fun with it as well. And I think that's the important thing about this whole YouTube lark, isn't it? It's about just engaging in a conversation. You don't even realise time flies when you're doing one of these things, and you just get to talk and learn a load of stuff as well as you're going along. And
I think the thing is, Lee, sorry to interrupt you. I apologise.
No, it's good. It's good.
It's getting to talk to so many different people, getting opinions. You know, I don't have. It's never going to be my career, because it ain't. But I just like talking to different people, going on different channels, and getting different people's opinions. Talking to you, talking to Posh Bertie, what's his name, Fran. I go on Lee Gunners, and I have people come on mine, and you just get a different rapport with people, don't you? Really?
Yeah.
And to me, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, it is, and it's about it. Like I say, taking in people's opinions as well. We won't all agree on the same sort of thing. I thought certainly we will definitely have different views from Arteta and the likes of what's going on at the modern day. I know that for a fact, but that's the beauty of this sort of platform as well, sharing opinions and gauging views from other people. I think.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I had a meltdown on your channel last year where that guy was about putting Partey in right back, didn't he?
I don't think that was on mine, but I know exactly what you were talking about, and I referenced it. In the Forest game.
I don't remember, but anyway, whatever. Sometimes you just say, I'm bad for it sometimes. I just get into it. I like, nah, you know, and I sometimes have to throttle back and think,
Yeah.
No, don't say it. Just listen.
Push Bertie with a comment here. Arteta watched the video and made it happen.
Probably.
We all know he watches the channels. That's what it is.
Cool. Hey, mate, I'll tell you now, fact, right? Arsenal media, yeah? We're not talking about that big channel. Arsenal media watch everything YouTube puts out about Arsenal.
Oh, good. I hope they do. Well, maybe they'll have us on one day.
Yeah, I hope they have me on.
All right, Jez. Well, look, mate, I've absolutely loved having you on our channel here tonight, mate. It's been a really good show. It's been a really great show, really good chat. As Arsenal Forever in the chat says, great show, fellas. Respect. Thank you very much. Before we close out the show, Jez, please give your channel a massive shout out and where people can find you.
Yeah, it's Arsenal, the History and More, YouTube. If you're new, haven't watched it, please come, like and subscribe. I try and put out lots of different content. I get lots of different people on. At the moment, I'm not going to lie, it's difficult to find good content because, you know, I don't like to repeat what everybody else is saying because it just becomes boring. I do history shows. I haven't done any for a long while. I will, but sometimes you think, can't be bothered because they don't get great views, to be honest. And you think, really, you know, doing a history show can take me sometimes 2 hours to set it all up, you know, get it all right, make sure I'm not talking rubbish. I mean, I do know a lot about Arsenal, and people say to me, Jez, you've got an encyclopedic brain. No, I haven't. In my era as a fan, I can give facts. If I'm doing history, I have to research it because, you know, I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I know people think I'm 200 years old. Actually, I'm not. But you know, I have to work on it. And sometimes you think, oh God, I'm going to do this for 2 hours, and I'll probably get 300, 400 views max.
I'd love to get that.
You know, it's like, oh, can I be asked? Yeah. But it is what it is, man. It is.
Yeah, very much so. Well, so this has been really fun, and I hope this has been been something very different for you. So I'm glad you were here, Jez. Just to wrap it up, you can find me on Twitter at Goonerly You can find all of us on the channel at Gooner Gathering. Anyone who is new to watching us either live right now or watching us on demand, please make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Let's get us up to 200 before we start the new season. I think there's one last comment that might have just come in. It's from Hendon Gooner, who just says, have a great evening. Make sure you all have a lovely evening, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and we shall see you soon.